Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so very much for being here. I greatly appreciate having you. In today's video, we are going to be talking about all the books that I have read in April and in May. It's been a few months since I've done a reading wrap up. I'm very excited to sit and chat with you guys and talk to you guys about the books that I most recently read. And without further ado, let's get right into it. I don't know why I felt like I had so much more to say. The first book that I'm going to be talking about is the first book that I finished in April, which was A Woman and Me by Nina Lauren. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. I actually found this book in a mini library. I go on this route that's by my house where I literally pass by like 5 mini libraries, and I have the most fun going on a walk and going past all the mini libraries, and I actually found this book in one of those. I brought this book home with me. I read it / listened to the audiobook. This book definitely wasn't anything crazy. I definitely wouldn't say go buy it right now and read it. It wasn't anything like out of the world mind-boggling. I feel like I would rate the book maybe like a 3.5. This book is like a mystery. I wouldn't necessarily say a thriller, but it definitely has like some suspense to it. We are following our main character, Cecilia, who has some past trauma, and we start the book with not knowing really what she has been through, but we know that she definitely has some like PTSD, and we're following the character when she's trying to learn how to deal with it. And the main concept of the book is they are living in a smart home. It's like if Apple made a house. Like, it has a lot of electronics, there's like robots, not even in like physically, but like within the speakers. Like, I don't know how to really explain it, but it's very like futuristic, eerie home type of vibes. So I enjoyed that aspect. And the concept of the book was quite eerie because only like certain people can live in the neighborhood where these smart homes were at. I enjoyed listening to the audiobook, but it's probably a book that I haven't thought about since finishing it. Then to the second book that we're going to talk about. It is Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. I finally have read another Lucy Score book. I read Things We Hide from the Light, I want to say in 2022. So it's been a while since I've read a Lucy Score book. And I remember when I read that book, I loved it. And I was like, I need to read more from Lucy Score. I tried reading The Dead Guy Next Door, I forget the series name, and I remember I didn't really like the beginning of it and I ended up DNFing it, and then I went like 2 years later without picking up another one of her books. Then I finally picked up Things We Hide from the Light, and I'm so happy that I did, because then it just like reignited that excitement that her books bring me. I felt like I was so intrigued to read more of her books, and then so much time went by that I forgot about it. And then now that I finished this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to read the third book in the Knockmount series, Things We Left Behind. I definitely want to pick that book up, not 2 years later, but I want to pick it up soon. This book, I actually have a reading vlog out with it. I made a video of tackling my physical TBR, and this book is one of them. So if you want more in depth or just like coming along with me while I read the book, then I highly recommend checking that book out. So in this book, we are following Nash, who is the brother of the main character in the first book. It's Knox. So Knox is the main character in the first book, Things We Never Got Over, and Knox has a brother named Nash, and that's what we're following in this book. Nash is the chief of police, and we are also following the main character, Lena. Honestly, before getting into this book, I'm like, what do you have to say that takes up these many pages? But once you get into the story, it just flies by. It's so easy to read. You're not bored once. At least for me, in my experience, I wasn't bored. I wasn't waiting for the book to end. It didn't feel like the book was dragging. I felt like we were doing other things than just romance, so I felt like it wasn't dragging the story. In the first book, we're following Knox and Naomi. They end up actually going through something, and we end up continuing that story in this book as well. I don't want to say spoilers because I want you to go into the book blindly, especially if you haven't read the first book. I don't want to say too much about the second book in the series, but it's more than just romance. Like, there's this like conquest that we go on. Nash is the chief of police, so we're going through an investigation, and it's very personal to Nash, so we like are in the meat of the investigation. There was definitely things that Nash was doing that was really annoying me. In the reading vlog, I talked about it. like he was doing things that just were really like douchey and annoying, and I did not like it. But I went past it and I just continued with the story, and I ended up really enjoying it. But at the end of the day, I read this book while traveling, and it was a perfect book to take with me. When you're traveling, you need something that's going to grab your attention the entire time and not make you bored. Like, you need a book that's gripping, and this book was that. And it's a romance. So for me to say like the romance was gripping, I feel like that's a pretty good compliment considering it's a romance. There's a really good like found family aspect in this book. I love the characters that we are introduced to. I think I would rate it like a solid 4.5. I definitely want to jump right back into the series and finish it relatively soon. It definitely makes me want to pick up more by Lucy Score. Then to the third book, it is The Coworker by Frida McFadden. I also was reading this book when I was traveling in April. I ended up binge reading it. I ended up reading like 200 pages. Funny story though, I forgot my headphones at my mom's house, so I had nothing to do on the plane but read. But it was perfect that I had this book. This book saved me. If I didn't have this book, I would be bored out of my mind. I think not having my phone definitely played an effect in like me binge reading this book. I feel like if I had my phone, I feel like I probably would have picked up my phone and watched a movie for a little bit. But needless to say, I read this book for at least 4 hours straight. I was just so eager to finish it. It was just so good. Frida McFadden is definitely one of my favorite authors, but she's also such a good author to like binge read. If you're going on a flight, if you're going on a road trip, just like traveling where you have nothing to do for hours on end, I highly recommend picking up a Frida McFadden book because you're not going to be bored, you're not going to be sleepy. One thing about me is if I'm reading, I'm going to get sleepy. So knowing that I was on a plane or in a car not getting sleepy because I was reading this book says a lot about it. I can't say enough good things about Frida McFadden. Bingeable, easy, fast-paced, a story that's going to be entertaining. That's what Frida McFadden is good at. Also, another thing is I can never guess the ending. You think that you know what's going on. You think you know the ending. You think you got it all figured out. And then Frida McFadden's like, no. And then you end up going this way and it's something completely different. And you're like, what? How did I not see this coming? I wouldn't have guessed any of this. But it's not twists and turns that feel fake and like take you out of the story, but it's definitely things of like, what? I wouldn't have guessed this, and it's in the best way possible. I love it about her. It's definitely one of my favorite things about it because it just keeps you on your toes, and the excitement or like the suspense, like whatever it is on the last like 25 pages, you're like, what? And that experience is so much fun. So in this book, it says 2 women, an office filled with secrets, one terrible crime that can't be taken back. So we're following 2 characters, Dawn and Natalie. These 2 characters have a past and secrets that no one knows. And you think you know who the bad character is. And you think you know what's going on, but then you don't. It's intertwined in such a good way where you don't know who's telling the truth and who's lying. And it's like twisted and like you don't know who to trust. You don't know who's lying. And I feel like I would rate this book probably also like a 4.5 or like a 4.75. Then the next book is My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. If you saw my video of every book that's on my TBR, I think I talk about this book, obviously, and I pronounced the name so bad. I don't even want to go back to the video and figure out how I said it because I know it's so embarrassing. I think I said Emily Ratajkowski. I think that's what I said. I said I didn't want to go and watch it and embarrass myself, and then here I am like saying how I pronounced it. Jaden taught me how to pronounce her last name, Emily Ratajkowski, and I can't believe that I pronounced it Ratajkowski. That's embarrassing. Anyways, this is My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. This is a memoir. I've read 3 memoirs this year, and I love memoirs so much. If you're intimidated or you just feel like you're not interested in memoirs, I still highly recommend picking up any memoir. Like, you should give memoirs a chance if you haven't read one already. I love memoirs so much. I feel like it is such a gift to be able to listen to another person's story. And I feel like it's so empowering to read about another person writing their entire story and all their dirty laundry and all their secrets and just like everything that they went through. I feel like it's so amazing that that person is able to write it into a book. I feel like it's so powerful and amazing of that person to be able to do that. So I feel like I have just like this respect for anyone that has written a memoir, because I just can't imagine how hard it would be. So Emily Ratajkowski is a supermodel celebrity, and in the book we're following her from when she's a kid, like teenage years, to when she's an adult. But it doesn't go from when she's a kid and growing up with her. It goes back and forth from adult life to when she was a teenager, and it goes back and forth in timelines. I'm so fascinated about reading about celebrities, and so reading about her being a celebrity, her becoming one, how she became one, it's so fascinating to me. Like, I really enjoy it. Obviously, as if you can probably tell, the title is My Body, so it talks a lot about women's sexuality, the way they are treated in this man world. America Ferreras, she does a speech in Barbie, and if you're familiar with that movie, then you know what I'm talking about. But it's like, you can't make people happy in this world as a woman. Like, there's always something that people are going to pick at, and this talks a lot about that. Like, it's heartbreaking. It's beautiful. The way that it all wrapped up was so good. And I would say the book is like a 4.5. I really had a good reading month. 4.5 or like 4.75. I really enjoyed the book. Then to the second to last book we're going to be talking about today. It is I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica L. Sanchez. Wow, now that I'm looking at my book, I feel like I actually was having a really good reading experience. Like, I was actually picking up books that I was really enjoying, because I feel like I would also rate this book like a 4.5, 4.75. I felt like in the beginning I was in a little bit of a reading slump, so I wasn't picking up the book like whenever I could. But then once I got like out of it, then I was just picking this book up, like listening to it whenever I could. I had such a good experience with this book. If you're a woman and if you're Mexican, I highly recommend picking this book up. Of course, if you're not one of those things, I still think that you should pick the book up. But of course, since the whole book is wrapped around being a Mexican and a girl, I feel like if you're one of those things, you're gonna have a better experience with the book, because you're going to feel so represented. You're going to feel like you're gonna have those moments where you're like, yes, yes, like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one, sort of thing. This book makes you feel seen. I would also highly recommend searching up the trigger warnings. There's death, depression, anxiety, suicide. There's so many hard topics in this book. So if you want to pick this book up and you're a little worried about those trigger warnings that I just said, I recommend searching up the trigger warnings to see all of them. But I would highly recommend to just be cautious before starting the book, because it's not a light-hearted book. With that being said, the book made me laugh so many times, because the main character was just so witty and she didn't hold back to who she was, and like the character just made me laugh so much, and just like things that happened in the book made me laugh. In this story, we're following Julia, who is 15 years old and lives in Chicago, and the book actually starts off with her older sister Olga passing away. And so 15-year-old Julia is trying to figure out who she is as a person, and also having to grieve the death of her older sister, and also uncovering secrets that her older sister had, and trying to figure out basically what to do with those secrets that she ends up discovering. It's also having just a really strained relationship with her mother and her father, and it's like the classic like strict parenting where they like don't let them do what they want and judge them for who they are. We even go to Mexico in the book, and like I feel like I knew exactly what she was feeling when she was in Mexico. She was finding this like peace and comfort in being in Mexico, and I know exactly what she's talking about because I get the same when I'm there. It's such like a tender story, and after finishing this book, like I felt really good. Even though the book wasn't lighthearted in the slightest, I felt like after finishing it, like it just wrapped up so well, and it just made me feel so good, and like I had a smile on my face, like, and I wanted to recommend it to people, and I recommend it to you. I really enjoyed this book. I'm so happy that I finally picked it up. It had been on my shelves for a while, so I'm so happy that I finally have read it. Then to the very last book that I read in May. I literally binge read this book. I read like 2-3 hours of this today to make sure that I finished it today so that I can give my full review of it. I would rate this book maybe like a 3.5. I don't know why I can't say a solid like rating today. I also would say like maybe 3.75. It was really hard for me to finish this book, or like just to like get started. I feel like once I was started and I was like past 25% way through the book, then I was able to go through the book. This is a score by Alkane. I don't even know if I said that. This is the 3rd book in the Off-Camp series. I had so much hope for this series. Like I really thought that these books were going to be amazing, like 5 stars, and that's just not my experience with them. But that's okay. I still want to finish the books. I have 2 more in the series. I still feel like picking up the rest of the series and finishing it. Like I definitely don't want to just end it there. So it wasn't that bad, but sometimes when I talk, I just end up like burping on accident. My bad. I don't even know if you heard it. It just like came out quietly. Basically, even though it's like a 3.5, I don't want to stop there. Like I definitely want to finish the series. It felt like it took me forever. It probably took me like a month. Let me go on my Goodreads and I can exactly tell you how long it took me. I started this April 14th and I didn't finish it until May 26th. So over a month later. I was not interested when I first started it. Like I wasn't intrigued in the slightest. I was much rather picking up another book. I feel like there was a very interesting choice in the beginning of the book. I would say like not even 3, I would say 3 chapters in. I had the biggest fear of saying spoilers, and you who was watching this being like, oh, why'd you say that? No, the book is ruined for me. Because that has happened to me. That's happened to me. So I literally feel like I'm walking on eggshells right now, making sure that I don't say spoilers. Okay, the 2 main characters, Allie and Dean, immediately have spice, but we don't even see the spice. So it just skips over it, and I was like, what? Like I didn't like it. But then it ended up making sense, because then we're following the characters basically trying to figure out how to go from there. And you obviously expect them to get together because there's an entire book of them. If you read this book, then maybe you'll know what I'm going to talk about. There is a scene right before they say the first I love yous. There's tomato soup involved. And it was very interesting. I was like, this kind of just came out of nowhere. Like all of this didn't need to happen to get to the result of them saying I love you. And also the very end, like the very end, like the last page, I was like, what? But I don't hate it. Like I'm not like that was the worst book ever. I was still rated like a 3.5. My mouth is dry. I think that was enough talking. Hopefully you had fun listening to me talk about these books. Those are all the books that I read in April and in May. I'm so excited for summer. It's right around the freaking corner, and summer comes with romance, fun, fluffy books, and I'm just so excited to dive into those books. So the next time that you see a reading wrap up, it's going to be the summer books. I'm so freaking excited. Those were all the books that I read. I hope you had fun listening to me ramble. And if you've read any of these books, definitely comment down below and let me know what your experience was with them, and let me know what your rating is. That's going to be it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.